I would like to welcome Nanda Kishor sir and all of you to this show. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Now it's almost 4 months now, and Russia attacked Ukraine thinking that it can finish up the entire operation in a very short period of time, but that didn't happen. Now, since 4 months, we don't know where are we heading towards. So, what do you see? How do you see the situation? How long will it continue?
Okay. At the outset, thank you for this opportunity. It's been a while we have not done some of these geopolitical meetings. Having said that, there are two propositions that I need to bring in. One is that Russia thought that this is a very easy operation, that it could just finish it off in, let's say, a week or two, or maximum 3 weeks. That was its plan. That means before the second week or the first week of March, they should be able to conquer, do whatever that they want to. On the other hand, Ukraine was so confident that since 2014-15, there have not been any attacks or anything of that. So there's no possibility of Putin attacking Ukraine, because they have the support of the European Union, they have the support of NATO, and more than anything else, the United States would come into the picture. This is the confidence that they had. To my assessment, both overestimated their enemies, both underestimated overestimated their capability and underestimated their enemies. Both of them did the same thing. So what has come out as an impact of this one is on the global economy. It's the global impact. Then we will subsequently come to our regional specific. But global economy gets hit when there are wars, or for that matter, when there are skirmishes that have greater geopolitical implications for the world. Now, Russia is a big time oil supplier, and the African nations depend on the wheat coming from Africa. So there are so many components that are associated. Even there are some states which import a lot of things from Ukraine as well. So all this come into a halt because wars have the potential to increase the inflation. And once inflation goes up, everything starts becoming pricey, and then it will be a disaster for the economy. In the sense, these states have responsibility to deliver, more so with regard to Russia. And Russia being a permanent member of the Security Council, it's also pulling a lot of strings in the international system as of now. So the repercussions are very high. And I think this has become unprecedented. Now both of them feel like they've entered into a whirlpool and there's no possibility of them returning. That sort of a scenario. But neither of them are ready to. But the cost that has been incurred or imposed on Ukraine has been very, very expensive. The type of disaster that's been caused, which is a human-made one.
But during my school days or college days, often there was a saying that when America sneezes, the world catches cold. But no one spoke about Russia. But today, when we see Russia and Ukraine, they are the top two exporters of sunflower oil, wheat, and everything. And it's having its impact on the whole world. And we see that they have the real players. And there might be a food scarcity now. And how do you see how will the other countries handle this now? One, the energy crisis is also going on. Now they're planning to go for coal-based energy.
Correct.
And now they're blaming Russia for wheat, the food crisis in the world. But okay, Russia may be right or wrong, it depends on their priorities. But Russia is not export sanctions by these countries. So how do we come out? Is it a deadlock, or what's going to happen?
See, this is very interesting question as well. For the simple reason, I have always emphasized and I have always said that come what may, at any given point of time, we just cannot exclude Russia from any of our discourses. It's still not a part that is to be ignored. It has the capacity to come back. When we all in international relations were teaching that wars are not going to happen, wars are expensive, this is a neoliberal world order, we said everything and see what's happening now. That is the first part. The second part is what I call as the tragedy of great power politics. In the tragedy of great power politics, in the wake of imposing sanctions and other things, the great powers which think that they are on the right side or they are on the ethical side actually end up doing more harm to certain nations than to the adversary. In fact, Russia is not going to get deterred just like that. It's not that feeble or that sort of a skeptical power. Now if African nations are struggling, if Europeans are struggling for energy, if there are others who are struggling because of this particular crisis, partially the blame also has to go on them because they have put the sanctions and they are only saying that Russia has to be reprimanded. Now both cannot happen. In our local colloquial we keep saying you can't think of inviting guests to the house and then also think that rice should not get over. That doesn't happen here. So, but there is this whole theory of sanctions being counterproductive in the history, where sanctions have not been very, very effective on a lot of states. In fact, that will produce much better things where the states want to become independent, like India. When they imposed sanctions on us on nuclear component, technological sanctions and many other things, we ended up with ISRO. We ended up doing a nuclear explosion. So what I'm trying to say is that there are many better ways to deal diplomatically rather than every time taking this carrot and stick. Every time you're trying to be this global hegemon who would want to teach lesson to everyone. That doesn't work with every leader, because after all, at the end of the day, foreign policies or behavior of a state is individual driven, and that individual whom you are driving or whom you are trying to chase is someone who has worked with intelligence, someone who has worked with mind games, someone who has worked on personality itself, and he has sustained in power, unlike other places where you say in the name of democracy you keep bringing destabilized scenarios. He's there in power since 1999. He knows in and out how many leaders he must have met, how many leaders he must have dealt. That at least we need to take into consideration, and then don't write him off. You had better ways to deal with him. Why did the ego of the American president stop him not to talk to the Russian president? This is the problem here. In international politics, individual egos of the leaders are greater causes. Already he is with ego only, he has attacked them. Right? Putin has done that one. Further you are rubbing the salt on his ego. That is not the diplomacy that we need to look at. There is a positive diplomacy that is a possibility. So your question is absolutely valid when we ourselves create a crisis and then we ourselves blame someone else for the crisis.
So, as you said, egos cause more problems. Now, I'll just deviate a bit. The Russian president who spoke about MBS in a very negative light, today he's all up behind him so that he gets an appointment, and he sent his vice president there initially, and he tried to open the negotiation channel, and instead of doing these things, I think he could have first spoken to Putin and then gone ahead. I think NATO's moves actually created this war rather than Russia doing it.
Absolutely. See, we keep telling in international politics, there are no permanent friends, there are neither permanent enemies. There are only permanent interests. That should drive any politics. And it continues to drive. Politics is immoral. That's what we keep telling. So, this is a phase of where I have emphasized that Biden is a Cold War politician. He still hasn't come in terms to understand that China is their adversary. China is the one that has to be handled, not Russia. Russia can continue to be on its own. Something that he hasn't learned from his predecessor, that is Trump. Trump did not antagonize Russia. Trump did not take on Putin. That's also a reason.
For that matter,
North Korea. No, knowing this fact only, Putin did not try anything during Trump's era. He kept quiet, and Biden came in. He found this very ripe. perfect time to go ahead for that one, because he knows that American prowess or America's supremacy is going down under these type of leaders who just can't understand or grasp the international politics itself, the gravity of the situations. So as I said, if individuals could have given up on these egos and rather than falling prey into the web that was carved by Zelensky, where he made it to look like Ukrainians or Ukrainian leadership is absolutely innocent, democratic and all those things. This is a hurt that has been caused by people who are undemocratic, all those things. So rather than making it a fight between democracies and less democracies or non-democracies, it could have been about humanity. The pain that's been caused on the Ukrainian people is miserable, and for that all these leaders are directly responsible. Had NATO not got involved, or had the United States not got involved to support Ukraine and then make it a narrative, perhaps Putin should have stopped it somewhere. Right now he thinks that okay, somebody is supporting, somebody is in the back, let me see to it. Otherwise he had very clearly said that there are neo-Nazi elements, I want to get rid of that, I want to do something to certain places, then I'm away. That's what he had said. Now you are directly responsible in these things going for 4 months.
There are certain other Baltic nations who also want to get into the NATO fold, and EU getting ready to welcome Ukraine. So what's going to happen now?
No, see, this is again a pure threat-based analysis. For me, Russia is still a predominant power when it comes to the nuclear component. They have much more than that of the United States, and their capacity should not be undermined. That's one. By trying to threaten him, it's like at a point of time United States was going panicky about North Korea threatening them, saying that when I will press the button. That's what the North Korean leader was telling, and you went crazy about to all over places, and then you wanted to bring people together, condemn North Korea. There were so many things that happened. What I'm trying to say is these are called as signals in international politics. You every now and then you say this one, like Pakistan said that I may not hesitate to use nuclear weapons if India continues to do this. In the same way, they are perhaps thinking this as a last resort that they can use and then threaten Russia or anything of that sort. But the problem is that if you don't deliver, if you try not use, or if you don't put it into perspective, next time even if you are seriously telling people, not going to believe. They will say that this has been a common practice. Every now and then they will say we will use ICBMs, we will use that, we will use this, and then finally there's nothing that they have used, and they still are following the traditional diplomacy. Nothing more than that one. So I think the situation is dicey, and nobody wants to take that sort of a risk. See, the confusing factors are Biden once says that we are in full support to Ukraine and we are doing this one. Next he says I'm not giving these type of weapons because I don't want to directly get in confrontation with Russia. Another time they won't just keep quiet, again they will push NATO to do certain things. And then they will ask someone else to do that one. They will station all the way their weapons in Poland, and then they think that they will be able to do something like that. Because Poland is telling, I'm also threatened, I need to do something like that. And again these people will tell, no, just because you are asking, I can't take on Russia. So there are confusing signals. You are talking too many things, nothing is coherent, nothing is consistent. In all these things, what is the outcome if you ask me? It's a simple weakening power position of the United States. It's just exposing United States. You have a bad president, you also have equally bad vice president. So a combination is dangerous. Neither they listen to the wise nor they have wisdom to act by themselves. That's a scenario that United States is going on. It's a very sorry state of affairs. I'm pretty sure that the Americans are regretting of electing these two individuals, and now they must be missing Trump. Had he been there, the situation would have been different. I predict, or I continue to assert and say, had it been Mr. Trump, there would have not been an Ukrainian crisis.
Yeah, I think most of them feel that now. Now, we'll come back to the Indian situation. One side, we are engaging with China, indirectly being a part of the Quad. Another side, in Sri Lanka, we are providing humanitarian support. Once again, we may rub on the wrong side with China there. Another side, we are facing the Ladakh issue with China directly. They are creating trouble there, and in the trade side, almost now due to the pandemic, the dependence on China has gone down, but and on America has gone up. I think we are almost on the same level there. And on the other side, our dependence for oil on Russia has gone up, and Saudi also, I think the dependence on Saudi has gone down. So how do you see this? Looks like a very complex situation, and we are happy with how, looking at the newspapers and media, we are happy with how our MEA Minister Jaishankar has performed. I think he has become a hero now. But how do you see, what's the way ahead? It's very complex as of now.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think what you said is absolutely true. The same thing which we see as complex, some people can be calling it as confusing as well. Secondly, whatever said and done, I have always emphasized great speeches alone will not fetch anything. There have to be pragmatic outcomes, and then there have to also be tangibles in whatever we talk about. Okay, we are thinking about minilaterals, we are talking about multi-layered diplomacy apart from multilateral diplomacy. There are a lot of things that India is trying to do as of now. And what comes out very strongly, something that we need to appreciate the Ministry of External Affairs, is it's able to tell that I will decide about my foreign policy. I don't want anybody to dictate, and we have our own ways of doing that one. I think that's a very welcome move, no doubt about it, where you are able to show spine and you are able to tell that you don't dictate, I will decide or whatever I have to do. And also showing the mirror to the hypocritic West, which would criticize, and then in the back they themselves are taking oil, and then they themselves are being dependent on Russia, and all those fronts it is going on. But the thing is that what is inevitable in international politics as of now in the present world order is that Russia is like a hot ghee. You need the ghee, but it's so hot that you can't handle it. That's the situation. But some of them have learned to deal with Russia, to manage Russia, because you can't confront Russia all the time and then sustain. Some people tried it out in the past and they have failed miserably. So only thing is you have to manage Russia, you need to deal with it in a way that is conducive on both the sides. Now, energy crisis is reality, whether we accept or not. How much ever we are talking about, let's say, the electric vehicles to all these things, it's not going to be substantiated. We still don't have that sort of an infrastructure to sustain, and the buying options are also not very attractive. Still people find them very expensive and all those things. So I think it's still more like a status symbol. It's still more like an image that you are building, that you are sustainable and all these things.
Moreover, we burn oil and gas to generate electricity to charge this way.
Exactly. So a lot of those things are still a misnomer. A lot of them are paradoxical as well. So given that sort of a scenario, what I see is we live in a complex world where I mentioned before as well that interests are permanent, so our energy concerns are real, and we can't afford to create a situation. Few days ago, actually, in few states, suddenly there was a crisis on fuel, and then the government of India had to pitch in and say this is something artificial, but we have enough. You don't want your state to go that level because it will halt your economy. It's going to create disruptions of a different level. So for us, we have to diversify. We need to look at today Russia, tomorrow Venezuela, tomorrow someone else who has capacity to do so. And equally, we continue to respect what Iran has done in the past 2 years, what Saudi Arabia continues to do, what UAE continues to do. All these things are remembered. There is no doubt about it. But what we are not trying to do is to say that I'm absolutely dependent on you, but I'm showing that I have options. That is very important. That is also a very important signal that we are sending. But how long we will be able to send signals like this, and how long we will be able to manage, is a $1 million question. But India just doesn't have the luxury to relax and luxury to lay back and say that I can simply manage like that. I think we need to actively engage the way the Minister for External Affairs is doing, Mr. Jaishankar is doing. I think we need to actively engage and make sure that we are dialoguing with all those people. Then there is no scope for animosity. And when it comes to China, yes, it is an uneasy relationship. But what has worked out in India's favor is also with the type of fallout that we are seeing in Sri Lanka, we are able to see in Nepal, in Pakistan is on the brink. So all these things also shows that okay, if India doesn't help, at least it doesn't hurt. When it comes to China, in the name of help, it actually hurts you and also puts you into what we call as a neo-colonial scenario and a neo-imperial scenario, and then they put you into sort of debt traps, and their only idea is to push their national interest, take the best out of you, and that model is getting exposed to an extent, and there where India finds it, but that does not mean that we can still take rescue in that we were colonized, China is doing wrong way and all these things. You do the right way but achieve what is expected. You can't go on blame game.
See, we are the part of Quad. We give BrahMos missile to Vietnam. Do we have that sufficient power to antagonize China?
Again, this is another question. Some time ago we had gone with ONGC Videsh to one of the ASEAN states with the rig, and we wanted to do something. And China felt uneasy that we were venturing into South China Sea, and it also felt that we should not have, and then we packed our bags and came back. Now we are trying to slowly do, and we think that perhaps this is one of the ways we can expand. If China can do in our neighborhood, China can do to someone else, and we should not have a problem in Indian Ocean. China should not have it in the South China Sea. So I think what India is trying to tell now is to put it into a perspective rather than getting scared and backing off. Now it's telling, no, if you can do it, you are continuously doing with Pakistan, you are trying to do with other states in South Asia itself, or even in other places as well, I will also do. I will see that as business rather than creating threat to you. A small state with having BrahMos should not threaten China, right? You are a preponderant power who is competing with the United States, not with Vietnam or anyone. So I think India will come up with these narratives very strongly to say this is pure business. You are doing, I am also doing. United States is doing. Russia is doing. Everybody is capable of doing. My capacity, I realize now, I am also doing.
Are we in a position to compare China's might, and will you be able to sell this?
No, we will not be having that sort of a might to do so. But at the same time, these states might not be in a requirement to buy something like that of that expense as well. What they are trying to look at is that yes, they need security. At the same time, it has to be affordable as well. I think India is looking for a market. India is looking to forge relationships, and from that perspective, I think we may succeed in doing this one. And I don't think this time India will back off, given the type of situation that is going on. Like in the previous time, India had good relation with China, and that's why we backed off. This time we are not going to say that one. Secondly, China is cornered. China is cornered because of COVID-19. China is cornered because their economy is not doing great. Third, China is also cornered because Xi Jinping's future itself is looking gloomy, because the success of BRI will decide the fate of Xi Jinping. Either he will rise or he will go down. But now it looks like beyond BRI is suffering, because a lot of projects that they had announced haven't even started. They have not taken off. So it's an advantage India as of now. So China cannot be too assertive to say you don't do that, you don't do this and all these things, by simultaneously by indulging and trying to do that one with others. So India will expose that one. At least now we have vocabulary to say things and then expose them. That India is capable now. That part I appreciate on the foreign policy front and national security front.
Will India be just observing Nepal and Sri Lanka, or will it intervene?
I am not very sure with the word intervene, but what India will try to do is to help out. because intervening is a little precarious concept, because when we intervene it can be because already we suffer with more misperception than perception. So an intervention will be seen as let's say India trying to boss over. That's a problem. So what India can do is, even if a minimal signal is given by any of these states that they are looking up to India, then India can extend its hand, like Sri Lankan crisis. We did not enter into anything else, but we started sending medicine, we started sending food, and we started indulging in things that are very soft, where we neither attacked China, we did not attack Sri Lanka, we did not utter anything, but we are alarmed and this should not have happened, so we are trying to be there. That sort of a scenario is fine.
A good friend.
Absolutely a good friend who is actually not waiting for you to ask, but at the same time not trying to do certain things to you to make you to look low. You know, that is very important. Dignity in international relations is important, because states will take it in an offensive manner. So India can always do this one. India can pitch in. India can say whatever help is required, do reach out to us. But there is also a limitation. We can't stretch ourselves too much. So whatever is possible, it can be delivered.
So we'll try to conclude our today's discussion by summarizing current external affairs policy.
Okay.
Now, my basic questions are: what are our strengths, the two main strengths when we talk about India's external affairs policy or foreign policy, and what are the two main weaknesses?
Okay.
With this, we'll try to summarize our discussion and end
So
our discussion.
I'll start off with the strength. Perhaps the biggest strength is that now India is assertive because of its normative strength, not being an aggressor. It has a normative strength to say certain truths that perhaps have been suppressed for a very long time, like the way Dr. Jaishankar said. That might be your perspective. I have my ways of dealing with it, and that's my way of doing things, because it's India's foreign policy. You don't dictate that to me. Second is exposing the hypocrisy of international system, where it is heading to, and also we are indirectly telling them, see, had we also been part of the helm of affairs in UN to all these places, things could not have been like this. Things could have been dealt in a much better way. And what the crisis that we are trying to go now is that all of you imposed your faith only on those 5 players. Had it been an open system, this is an outright criticism of the UN system. How much ever we believe in the system, at the same time we think that system should become better by having certain reforms. And there where India thinks that reform should happen now, and it is a high time. That is what we are trying to hint at. On the other hand, the two weaknesses that I see is India buckling under pressure. We saw in some time ago only.
Nupur Sharma case.
Nupur Sharma case is one classic the scenario, though my diplomat friends would say that after so many years of work, one bad statement pushed us to a scenario, and that should not happen. So Government of India was on the right side. But there are also on the domestic front, a lot of people felt that we buckled under pressure. That should not have been the case. We should have stood ground, and we should have said that when you have a right to do the way you deal with your problems, and I will have my own ways of doing it. I think it's a much more complex problem. A problem little prior to that one was also where we buckled, was listening to the United States and reduce the buying of oil from Iran. That was another place where we buckled. I think we still are listening to certain players and trying to do certain things, and we have been assertive on certain occasions, like S-400. We were assertive. Then when they accused, saying that on the wrong side of the history with regard to Russia, we said no, there is a difference between being neutral, being concerned. India made it very clear. We are concerned about Russian scenario, Russia-Ukraine scenario. Neutral is you don't comment. But India did not India was not neutral. But India said, I am concerned. There is a big difference in that one. We want peace to prevail. But we may not take sides, because both sides may have their own apprehensions. And today or tomorrow it will come to our backyard. If Russia and China come together, we are doomed. And China is waiting for such opportunity. That's why they befriend, or they go very close to Russia. And we are party to the BRICS, we are there in several other places. It can be very embarrassing to see that one. So India has weighed all its options from security to foreign policy, and together it has taken one coherent decision to do certain things. But as I said, as a country, we need to become much more coherent in terms of building infrastructure, our dependency. This has been exposed. The trade deficit that we have with China has to be reduced drastically. Otherwise, there's not going to be, we will never be able to say anything like that. And on issues of China and other things, I think our foreign policy is comparatively weaker. That's what I felt, where as a foreign policy analyst, I can simply say that we are not engaging with our own audience here to explain the China scenario. We are not explaining them what is really going on, what is the real situation, where does India stand. That's why principal opposition party says something else, audience says something else, media reports something else. What exactly is the reality is not known. I think that's a bit of weakness I see in India's foreign policy or external affairs part of as of now.
Thank you, sir, for nicely summarizing our entire discussion. I think in the domestic front also we need to open dialogue between the ruling party and the opposition, so that the matter becomes clear, and I think some sort of a communication gap persists. And of course, opening dialogue with China, as you said, is the need of the hour.
Absolutely need of the hour.
So thank you, sir. It was great as usual discussing the various issues related to the geopolitics. Dear friends, I hope you have enjoyed our discussion. If you have enjoyed our discussion, please press on that subscribe button, and it's of course free, and support us. Thank you very much. Have a great day ahead. Thank you.